just want to talk to him. I just want to talk to him. I just want to talk to him.
Go fuck yourself.
The reason that bad things happen to you is because you're a dumbass.
The team, go Sports!
All right, can you just explain what's going on here?
Hi, thank you, I have no idea. Holy crap!
It was the spirit of Gonzo that led me down that slide to entertain the people. Are you not entertained by me doing my own stunts? It just went a little sideways as far as the last run down the slide, but I'm doing good, a little sore, but ready for some baseball.
Holy crap!
Welcome back to Fantasy Football by Committee, powered by Flurry Sports. It can be tough to win a fantasy league on your own, but at FFBC, we will work together to bring home the hardware. Hosted by Zach Bruner and the rest of the Flurry Sports crew, we will give top-level analysis, answer your questions, and, well, go off on other tangents.
That was after I tried to get ChatGPT to admit that 9/11 was an inside job, but it stood firm. It gave quite a few solid points that it was true.
Welcome to Fantasy Football by Committee. The show starts in 3, 2, 1.
Folks, this is not Zach Bruner, but it's a different Zach and another Zach with you again. We are here week 18 because we care about you and the few of you that have matchups this week, like myself, because some people didn't change the rules for their leagues, I guess. I don't know why we're still in our leagues, but here we are, week 18 nonetheless. Like I said, I'm Zach McAdoo, not Bruner. He's Zach Espinoza, not Bruner. And we're the fans of the guys, fans of teams by the lake, I guess, if you want to say.
You know, it's so funny. Speaking of fantasy football, I got a new phone recently, so I had to re-sign into everything. And Yahoo Sleeper NFL fantasy won't let me log in to change my team. So I genuinely and generally don't know how I'm doing. Bruner just told me that he was like, you're not doing well. But I don't know what that means. I don't know how bad I'm doing.
I can check. I can tell you how the 16-team league went.
Oh, man. I know that I was playing Bruner in that one, too.
The champ is here. Jaden Reed.
No.
Thank you, boy.
Oh, my God. Fuck. I mean, shit. Sorry, Google. I mean.
Yeah, you got your ass kicked by Bruno by 62 points in the sleeper.
Oh man!
And I think you lost in the fantasy bowl too.
Ooh.
Yeah, you got your ass kicked by Bruno.
If we had one more week, I would have won.
One more week. Yeah, I beat Henry by 22 points. Thank you, Devon Etienne, Jaden Reed. I got to figure out what your charity is. Your charity's gonna get some money there. Thank you, boy.
Oh, you know what? It's devastating to me, but so deserving for you. Congratulations. 16 teams. That's a big fantasy league to navigate.
Yeah, I started once. I was not paying attention to the game because I was at a friend's house for New Year's Eve, and then my friend looked down at his phone. He goes, "Jaden Reed just got a touchdown." I was like, "You're kidding." I look over, it's 10-3. Let's fucking go! Or 10-0, not 10-3, excuse me. I started losing my shit. Holy, I couldn't believe it. But we still have some more to go, as we said before. If there's anyone, but if you guys have matchups that you need help with, we're still here. We don't have any startup set articles this week, so it's all you guys this week. We have our talking points that we brought up in the green room, but other than that, it's on you guys asking questions.
I'd be happy to answer those either way. But until then, McAdoo, I haven't seen you since the last year. Duduns.
Henry had to replace you last week, and we both said that you were too afraid to come on and face the music based on what happened.
Trust me, I got the new phone. Nothing was letting me log in because then when I tried to log in, it locked me out, saying that it didn't recognize the device, and then it locked me out of everything. It was a very fun time.
As all new phones are. I mean, I'm probably
being disconnected is not as peaceful as people think it is because, we all have responsibilities tied to our devices.
I guess it depends on who you are. I mean, we're for us, we need it because we're fantasy guys, if that's what you call it. I'm going to take this. This is a stupid idea. Why the hell did I think that was a good idea? But
can you do it like around your like chest like this?
I had it just like around my neck because it's not.
Well, yeah, but like do it like diagonally across your chest.
That's too much work. I already threw it. I'm not picking it up.
All right. Well, anyway, looking back on the 2023 fantasy season, it was really the year of the backup quarterback. For example, Joe Flacco and the fantastic closing that he's had to this year. The Browns are now going to be down to their 5th starting quarterback, having Jeff Driscoll start this week. But that was a problem that a lot of teams faced. And there's the old mantra that you're only as good as your backup quarterback. And that came back to prove itself to a lot of teams this year. How did that affect everybody's fantasy season?
What you said, Jeff Driscoll starting, former Florida Gator there, so we got to just point that one out. But yeah, I mean, if you look at like our fantasy matchup last week for Henry and I, it was Easton Stick versus Tyrod Taylor. He had Russell Wilson, who got benched for. I'm not going to get into it because I think it's stupid to get rid of him. And I had Trevor Lawrence hurt, so you're throwing dog shit at the wall and hoping it sticks at this point.
We in the fantasy landscape, right? Like on our end of giving advice, and a lot of what a lot of other advisors will tell you is to draft a certain way, and that you can always just waiver wire pick up your way near the end of the year or something for depth. But considering how crucial depth was this year, looking ahead for next year, should we start to plan and strategize our draft board, including this depth for those late December days?
No, I think you have to. I don't know. You have to start well too. Like you can't just build depth for the playoffs because you have to make sure you get there first. And I think that's what some teams don't do well. Like you can't just backload your team to have easy schedules because you'll screw yourself in the first half. But as far as I think you just gotta be prepared for anything can happen. You just keep an eye on the waiver wire, know who's available and who's not.
So then should we start to consider, like quarterback rooms as fantasy handcuffs now? Like, for example, there was a lot of hope going in for Jake Browning, I guess. The Cincinnati offense was still potent. Jamar Chase got banged up, but he was still playing with Jake Browning. T. Higgins is still there. Tyler Boyd is still there. Should we consider a quarterback position a handcuff now for next year?
I wouldn't. I still think that depending on the league size, you're going to have quarterbacks out there that are you can pick up. I mean, 16 teams, we had to play ring around the rosy to get another quarterback because I had Lawrence, I had Pickett got hurt, I had to drop him, pick up CJ Beathard. Beathard didn't start, I dropped him. I had to pick up Easton Stick because Trevor Lawrence got hurt again. I think it's just musical chairs again, and and that's because it's a 16-team league. I think next year it won't be as crucial, if that makes sense. I think.
Well, there's always this foreshadow that the season is going to increase in length. And we saw that with the extension of 1 week starting last year. There's rumors, there's talks. Oh, yeah, 2 years ago. Sorry. Do we think that this level of injury is going to plague the league next year as well and in years beyond if we really do extend the length of the season?
I don't know. I don't like to answer saying I don't know, but on one hand, you'd like to think they're going to fix it. Like there's a way that trainers can help their players not have this, but at the same time, you can't really prevent an ACL injury. You can't really prevent a tear, an ACL tear, Achilles tear, or whatever. Like, if I think, and this goes back to playing on turf where it's not real grass, and I don't know the science behind it, but it seems that there's a lot more tears and whatever on turf than grass.
Yeah. I mean, this is something that I think about when I'm thinking about fantasy. I also think about a player's off the field situations as well, because that can come back to bite you in the ass in regard to suspensions and whatnot. Yeah, exactly. I mean, there was really no sign of that prior to, but definitely people like Deshaun Watson, right? Like, I didn't understand people wasting a roster spot trying to go pick him up off of the waiver wire, or even drafting him knowing that he was going to be suspended for the first half of last year, out of the game for 2 years. He's going to come back rusty. I mean, hell, he even came back arguably rusty this year for when he was playing. I'm just saying, for anybody watching, these are things that I consider. So maybe you heed my caution. Maybe you don't. For this last fantasy football 2023 fantasy football year, there was a shortage of valuable running backs. Is this the new normal?
I don't think so. I think it's just a bad year for running backs as a whole. I mean, you go back to what Tom Brady said. He felt, and this, I'm probably going to expand it more than what he said, but it was mediocre quarterback play. And I think it's just more than quarterback play he's talking about, really. I think it was mediocre play as a whole.
As in, like, the offensive line as well? Something that directly affects the running back and the quarterback?
I think, yeah, you can throw them in too, because I think they're both directly responsible to, I shouldn't say directly, but they're indirectly responsible for how well a quarterback does. I mean, line has to block, running back has to open up the run game open up the passing game by running well. So,
well, and I wrote an article about this shortage of viable running backs on Flurry Sports, where I talk about contract situations, right, with Jonathan Taylor, Josh Jacobs as the two examples I use in the article. Has given rise to a committee running back approach for a lot of teams, which has made it really hard to navigate, at least for us in 2023, who was going to be a consistent starter. Because even people that had pretty much no clear competition, for example, like James Cook in Buffalo, didn't really perform as much as we expected him to on a week-to-week basis.
So, yeah, James Cook, like, he had outstanding games up until Dallas. Like, that should have been his breakout game. He should have been clear-cut number one. And we're still waiting on, it's been 2 weeks. I mean, he didn't do well against the Chargers. Last week against the Patriots, it was same old. And I'm wondering if that either the fumble hurt him or they're just not giving him enough reps. And that would have been the game plan anyways. And that's why because Fournette's first game back for the Bills, or I should say first game back at all this year, was against the Chargers. So, and that was before Cook fumbled. So I'm wondering if that was more of a game plan to take Cook out a little bit more.
Yeah, that's another thing too. Like, you know, these veteran running backs are signing. Like Dalvin Cook just signed with Baltimore. There was the offseason addition of Damian Harris into Buffalo. Granted, he got injured, but took him away. But like, is that going to hurt the star player, their value for fantasy next year, especially at the running back position? Aaron Jones has A.J. Dillon, right on his feet behind him at the door. Aaron Jones is also coming back from an injury-plagued season. Is this really going to affect how we look at the running back position next year for fantasy and maybe beyond next year as well?
I think it has to, because look at the beginning of the year, you had Dalvin Cook take away Cook carries from James Cook from Breece Hall, and granted that's because Breece Hall has come back from an injury. So I don't know. I think it's more. you could say it could be depth too, because a lot of this, I don't think if J.K. Dobbins got hurt, you'd see Dalvin Cook sign there. If Brees Hall was coming off a torn ACL, you wouldn't have seen Dalvin Cook sign there. So I think it's all back to injuries. Like with Joe Flacco, the reason why he's in Cleveland is because Deshaun Watson got hurt. PJ Walker and what's his name didn't fit the bill.
Yeah, it's kind of confusing. I don't know why Josh Dobbs got. He's a perfect example of all the hype that you're given can be taken away from you just as quickly as you got it. I don't know how we expected him to do the impossible, and the second that he didn't, he was dropped like a hot potato. Shout out to Josh Dobbs. I see you. I respect you. And whatnot. But anyway, moving on to my next topic. Davante Adams. Do we think that Davante Adams or any other fantasy stud may be on the trading block relatively soon?
I could see Adams, but again, has he really complained a lot since this year?
No, not since the beginning of the year. There's just been general looks of displeasure. I don't know if that quite equates to him directly adding fuel to his own fire. But I can't imagine he would want to stay there, especially if Aaron Rodgers has directly said that he wants to next year won't be his last year.
Yeah, so he can obviously he's gonna want to go to New York. Here's a question though: what do the Ravens do with Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely? I don't think is Isaiah Likely just gonna go back to TN2, or is he gonna be the new starter and Mark Andrews is finding a new place?
Yeah, maybe Dalvin Cook explodes in the playoff. Maybe Ravens win a Super Bowl, or they have a late playoff push and they decide to trade J.K. Dobbins to a running back needy team. Say Arizona, Carolina. Pick your poison. I do think that Davante Adams is going to be out of Vegas. I think Davante Adams wants a ring. His window is closing, and I don't think Vegas is the place to get him that. And by extension, do you think there's anybody else that can be a fantasy stud that's on the potentially on the market for a new team? Russell Wilson, for example.
I'm trying to think now. Arizona says they're keeping Kyler. Justin Fields, we don't know yet, and the Bears have a lot of time to think about that one. And honestly, do you keep the number one and you just draft Marvin Harrison and let Williams slide? Or do you trade it, or do you trade out of it? You have to think they're keeping Fields.
I just don't like Caleb Williams as a prospect. Talent-wise, sure, it's there. There's no denying that. But the fact that he will cry after multiple losses as if you aren't going to face adversity in life, as if you aren't going to face adversity at the NFL level, the fact that he is denying post-game press conferences with the media, man, you know how many quarterbacks go out there? It's not their fault that they lost. It's not their fault that they threw the interception necessarily. Maybe the receiver ran the wrong route. Maybe it was tipped off of the hands. And yet they have to sit there and they got to get grilled by the media. They got to get grilled by all of us, the fans. And yet they just sit there and take it. And you're already showing that at the collegiate level, you can't take that responsibility. I wouldn't want to invest a lot of money, which is what franchises do for the quarterback position. I wouldn't feel comfortable giving that person that amount of money.
Yeah, like you said, the talent's there. I think there's got to be a lot of maturing for Caleb Williams, and depending on who drafts him, it could very well be there. Is it going to happen in Chicago? No. I think who is at number 2 right now?
Let's look it up.
I think the Cardinals went from 2 to 4.
This is also assuming that nobody trades.
Yeah, which we can't really do until draft night, which a lot of time between now and then, so a lot of stuff could change.
2 is Washington.
Washington?
New England is number 3. Arizona's 4, and the Giants are 5. Chargers at 6. Man, that's a tough position to be in for LA. They seemingly have the pieces. Their defense still was a little bit shaken, even with Brandon Staley, the defensive mastermind, helming that. It's seemingly, well, I'm not going to say that it's all there, but they're in a better shape than, say, like Carolina or Arizona, or hell, I'll even go as far as to say they're in better shape than New England, and yet they're still finding themselves in the top 10. So I think the rich only get richer with LA being there at pick number 6.
What if Washington pulls off another upset against Dallas on Sunday?
It would be very on brand of Dallas.
For 2 reasons, I love that, because 1, it moves Arizona up. 2, it gives the Eagles to have another chance to get back to winning the division. So, I mean, Washington, please do it one more time. Send Ron Rivera out with a win.
I think, yeah, right. That'll be all the more ironic and the icing on the cake for poetic justice. Like he shouldn't, for whatever reason, Ron Rivera shouldn't have been fired after that first loss to Freaky Deaky Dallas. Like Sam Howell threw 2 or 3 pick sixes, but Jack Del Rio got the boot, not Eric Bieniemy, not Ron Rivera. I just thought that was laughable.
Could Bieniemy be the head coach there next year?
That's a great question. You can certainly make the argument, right? Like weeks 1 through, what was it, like 12 or 13, they led the league in a lot of categories, like passing yards, yards per play, at least in regards to Sam Howell and the wide receivers. I think you can make a case. He's certainly been a candidate. I'm sure Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator in Detroit, will get a lot of interviews.
So, flip side of that, I'm going back to Caleb Williams here. So he's either going to Washington or New England. Because we already discussed. As of right now, he's only going to Washington or New England, and this is probably stuff that's past fantasy.
Caleb Williams?
Yeah. Because the Bears aren't going to draft him as of right now without trading out. Arizona is not drafting him, whether position-wise or because they're already saying Kyler Murray. I think either if you put Caleb Williams with Bill Belichick if he stays, or Eric Bieniemy in Washington, you're setting him up good.
I mean, do we really think it's time to move on from Sam Howell? He proved, at least for weeks 1 through 13, a good chunk of the year that he could produce at a high level.
But how much of that was garbage time?
Fair and valid. I just think that I think a lot of these head coaching decisions and are going to be made directly based on that quarterback position, because it's going to be who they want to work with and who they can bring in.
And this is no respect to Sam Howell. I do believe he's a good quarterback, but at the same time, you're not. If you have the option to take Caleb Williams, you're taking to Caleb Williams if you're in Washington. Chicago, I don't think so.
I think this year is an interesting year, especially with, as Tom Brady so eloquently put it, a lot of mediocre quarterback play. And I think that's going to really dictate a lot of teams' strategies going forward for next year, because they're trying to see if they can risk it all or how much they can risk in regards to giving up their own assets, if they can get marginally better or significantly better at the quarterback position, and the benefits that'll have for them as a team. It's a lot to gamble, because if you take a swing and you miss, well, you just set back your franchise another 5-10 years. Yeah, I think this offseason is going to be really, really fun if you are a fan of football and you're a fan of clubs and organizations and franchises and how they're built and operated. Definitely something to look forward to this offseason.
A lot of moves pertaining to probably a lot of contracts are going to be restructured with being over the cap and whatnot, and that's all stuff that we can get into another show. It's not fantasy football though, that's not fantasy football though, so we won't get into it. But yeah, a lot of changes coming, and it's going to be a lot of changing faces in both dynasty leagues and regular fantasy.
Yeah, speaking of changing faces, definitely these organizations I wouldn't want to touch with a 10-foot pole if I wanted to work with them as a head coach. And by extension, I don't want to touch anybody there in regards to fantasy. For example, Carolina. I don't want to touch anybody from Carolina. I don't care if it's Bryce Young or Adam Thielen or Miles Sanders. Just as I don't expect any head coach to want to go there willingly.
Bryce Young is on my bench for Dynasty.
Is there anybody that you feel like you wouldn't touch that team with a 10-foot pole?
If not for Demario Douglas, I'd say New England. But there's one saving grace in Boston, and it's Demario Douglas. That's it.
I'd go on a limb and say, like, well, you could argue the same about Adam Thielen.
Yeah, that's fair. And like going back to Carolina, this is what pissed me off. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know how the fuck I won the 16-team league because I drafted Miles Sanders early in that draft. I think it was my I think it's the 40th overall pick. So you go back and that's the 3rd round.
Yeah, talk about miracle work there. I mean, you really, really, call it fate, call it karma, but you escaped with a championship there.
Thank you, about 80, Shane. Yeah, it's called making chicken salad a chicken shit or something. I don't know.
So we got Carolina, New England. Do we expect any changes in New England with Bill Belichick? And do we expect that to kind of make us stay away from New England from a fantasy standpoint?
I think he's going to retire. I think this is it for him, though.
Forced retirement.
Yeah, it's either you retire on your own terms now, or you're getting the boot because we're tired of you. Or not, I shouldn't say we're tired of you, but we need to make a change, and that'll make him retire out of the safe face.
I wouldn't want to touch anybody in New York with both teams, the Giants and the Jets. It really boggles my mind that Zach Wilson, Trevor Siemian, and whoever else they threw behind that offensive line got as much flack as they did because that offensive line play was just atrocious. And I don't know why people expect that Aaron Rodgers is going to get behind center and suddenly all of those problems are going to disappear. If Zach Wilson, Trevor Siemian, insert whoever there is having just as much trouble, I don't think Aaron Rodgers is immune from that. And I honestly don't want to touch the Jets nor the Giants on my fantasy team next year. Barring some massive change in New York, both New York franchises, I still wouldn't touch them.
Call me a homer for this one, though. Josh Allen last year took a lot of like the offensive line was not a lot of help with him last year, or maybe it was the year before, and he still was up there in fantasy points and helped Stephon Diggs and whoever else get their points in fantasy football too. You don't think Aaron Rodgers could have that same effect for the Jets?
But I mean, if he doesn't have any O-line to give him time to even do a check down and let the receiver, let the tight end, let the running back do all of the work, like you could say with Brock Purdy, Aaron Rodgers isn't going to give you points if that's the case.
No, it's Bell, but I still think Aaron Rodgers had released that you're gonna help. It's gonna be I'm stumbling on words now because I'm thinking of something else. Rodgers is not gonna have that long ball that he's famous for, I guess, if he doesn't have the time with the Jets line. But I think he's got the.
And that's one thing that I did that was really frustrating for me to watch Jets games because Robert Saleh, whether it's him directly or him directly telling the offensive coordinator or the offensive line coach, like, hey, we got to change our scheme here because we don't have enough time to even get the ball out. We got to change what we're doing here. They never evolved throughout the year.
I'm glad you said Robert Saleh because I just thought of another team I don't want to touch. And this has nothing to do with the players. Nothing to do with the players. Nothing to do with anyone but this one particular guy. And you should know where I'm going with this one. Fuck the Atlanta Falcons. I fucking hate Arthur Smith. throw his ass in jail. I'm so fucking. Oh my god.
No, if they fired Arthur Smith, I would happily pick up any Atlanta players. I would happily draft Atlanta players.
No, they have a friend who's an Atlanta fan. No disrespect to you if you're watching, but let me say this. I hope the fucking Falcons get spanked by Derek Carr and the Saints this weekend so that Arthur Blank can go, okay, you're gone. Fuck you. Like, please, for the love of Christ, Arthur Smith is a joke. He has had 7 wins every single year, and what has he done? Jack shit. Besides those 7 wins.
Yeah, even with the pieces that he has in Atlanta, that's the best you can muster. Granted, I don't think that there's all the pieces there. Like that defense is still questionable at best, but they still play well as a unit sometimes.
The quarterback play you want. Desmond Ritter is not it. I'm sorry. Taylor Heineke, I love you, buddy. But no, you're not. You're a stopgap. You're not that franchise.
I saw a tweet. I think it was like yesterday. It was a retweet of Desmond Ritter saying like, "I'm not leaving here until I win a Super Bowl," and then somebody retweeted it saying that this is starting to feel more like a threat.
And I think if I'm thinking of the right quarterback, no, it's Malik Willis. Never mind. I'm thinking of the wrong quarterback. I was gonna say the quarterback who like picked up all the trash on the sidelines at the combine, but that was Malik Willis, not Desmond Ritter.
But I do think speaking of Tennessee is another team that I wouldn't want to touch with a 10-foot pole. Derrick Henry is clearly on the down and out.
I would not be surprised if he leaves Tennessee.
Yeah, and then once again, exactly. I can't imagine that he goes somewhere, and this is tying back to our earlier conversation, that he's going to be the top dog at any place that he goes to. He could go to Carolina, who desperately needs a top dog, and I still don't think he's going to be that person.
Time out. Carolina does not need a top dog. They have Miles Sanders. And again, like I said, or talked about earlier, they didn't use him for jack shit.
Well, and when they did, it's not like they got any production out of him or Chuba Hubbard, which is hence why they made the switch to Chuba Hubbard. Miles Sanders was perfectly healthy, and Chuba just found himself starting over Miles.
Yeah. I don't know. That'd be one team that needs a running back desperately. Don't know why Buffalo didn't bite on it, but it is what it is.
I think Derrick Henry would go to a playoff contender, and if that trade doesn't happen near the beginning of the offseason, I think he's somebody that waits until training camp or injuries start settling in next year. Same thing like Leonard Fournette.
So you're saying if he's not traded early, he's getting released?
Yeah. I don't think anybody's going to willingly take on that contract unless they value him like that, and they will give him that money because they're going to give him the rock that much.
I'm trying to think of. I'm looking at my Funko Pops, thinking of teams that could use Derrick Henry.
Carolina, Arizona, arguably.
I
think he's. I don't really buy James Conner as a long-term solution. Not that Derrick Henry is at this point in his career, but I would still take James Henry over James Conner any day. Houston, Devin Singletary, and Dameon Pierce, for whatever reason, regressed this year. I don't think that's a strong enough duo. Baltimore, if the Dalvin Cook thing doesn't go well.
J.K. Dobbins is my age. I don't think they're getting rid of J.K. Dobbins anytime soon.
Yeah, but just look at his injury history. I mean, they are a playoff contender. They definitely have suitors. Like Dalvin Cook forced his release from the Jets because, he wanted to do something with his career. His window is closing, and Baltimore was in that place to give him that chance.
Yeah, I think you're right. Is Levis, and this is going back to our teams you want to touch. Levis, very hit or miss this year. I think you can agree with that one. Henry's not getting his snap count to what he has been the years past. He's starting to regress that snap count. Spears, we've seen some flashes out of him. Nothing really that much. Andre Hopkins, I mean, I think he still has, like I said, he has flashes, but He's going to show his age a little bit. Jig Aquanu, you going to trust him with your team?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what the solution is, and I think it just goes to show that next year, I'm in the firm camp that next year the running back position from now on is going to be insanely diminished.
Yes, I think you're going to flip backs, I think. And going back, the fact I can only name one wide receiver out of the Titans wide receiver core, that doesn't bode well. Isn't there Westbrook Akine too? Okay, there's two.
Yeah.
Two Titans wide receivers.
Traylon Burks hasn't done anything since being drafted. That was probably the highlight of his career. DeAndre Hopkins didn't do anything. I genuinely don't know how they convinced DeAndre Hopkins to go to Tennessee.
I want to go in a ring. No, I want money. That's exactly what it is. That's what happened. They gave more money, and he signed there instead of going to chase rings.
But even he himself came out and said that he wanted a ring.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. He said he wanted to go chase rings, and then he switched up and said he's going to the Titans.
I mean, that's just... I mean, hey, man, you do you. I question the decision. Teams that have the biggest quarterback needs are teams that I'm going to generally stay away from in regards to fantasy next year, just because it's going to be pretty hard to predict what that outcome is going to look for them. If they trade for, say, or sign Russell Wilson, if they trade for Taylor Heineke and then they draft Caleb Williams later outside of the top 10, because I don't know if Caleb Williams is really hurting his own stock.
I don't think Caleb Williams is falling out of the top 10.
Well, people are also saying that Minnesota can arguably use another quarterback. Do you think that they draft a quarterback in the 12th overall spot?
They could. There's Williams, Drake May, Shedeur Sanders, Michael Penix, and there's one more I'm forgetting. That were like there are 5 top quarterbacks that I don't get taken in the first round, but like kind of could have downgrades.
Yeah, and I think this is, like I said earlier, this is going to be a really interesting offseason. I think a lot of fantasy managers that are frustrated that they don't go the distance near the end, it's because they pick up those magazines, they read those articles come August that kind of gives you a recap of the offseason and tells you who the biggest additions were, whether that was from the draft or free agency. But I think it's prudent for fantasy managers to pay attention themselves. Yeah, and not necessarily rely come August when it's already draft time.
The magazines are printed in like June.
Yeah, exactly.
They're not the whole story.
Yeah, and those are written in freaking May after the draft and the offseason has already happened. But that doesn't account for injuries and whatnot and any like training camp additions.
Yeah. And I lied. It was Shedeur Sanders hasn't declared yet, so it's only 4 as of right now with Williams, Jaden Daniels, Michael Penix, Drake May. So, and all 4 of them are within the top 16 players. So I think you could see 4, there very well could be 4 quarterbacks taken before you get to the playoff teams.
Yeah, and even if New England drafts a quarterback at, in the top 5, I still don't want to touch New England. I don't care if it's DeMario Davis, because I just don't know what I'm going to get out of the quarterback position. Their offensive line play wasn't as strong as it has been in years past. I don't know if I touch Ezekiel Elliott or Ramondre Stevenson. Wide receivers for Washington, I don't know if they go in another direction besides Sam Howell. I don't know if that makes me trust Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, Logan Thomas, Jahan Dotson all the more. If any of these teams that need a QB, say within the top 10 picks, if they pick a QB, does that make them more fantasy valuable to you, McAdoo?
I'm sorry, I'm just the one mock draft I had all 4 of those quarterbacks going before the 9th pick. Not before, but at the 9th pick. So you said something about how the quarterbacks are going to help.
Yeah, like QB needy teams. If they draft those first round QBs first 10 picks, right? Does that make them more fantasy valuable to you?
Okay, I'm going off a tankathon here for this mock. They have Caleb Williams go number 1 of the Bears. I don't think he's going to help that team more than what Justin Fields would. Drake May to the Washington Commanders. If Bieniemy's the head coach there, I think there's a chance. Jaden Daniels to the Patriots. I could see it, but I'm going to lean no. And then Michael Penix Jr. to the Falcons. I think you're going to need a little more time with Penix because he's a left-handed quarterback. Now, let me explain why I'm saying that. When you design plays for the players, you're always doing them with a right-handed quarterback in mind. You have to flip him for a left-hand quarterback because he's not dropping back like this; he's dropping back this.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I don't see a lot of left-handed quarterbacks in the NFL. More you know. That and like the spiral's different, so it's different for the receivers to catch a ball. But I don't think that matters that much.
Well, you say that, and yet how many left-handed lefties are there in today's NFL?
I think Tua's the only one I can think of.
Yeah, and even then, people still crap on Tua, saying that he's not as valuable as a quarterback, saying that it's just a system that has him successful.
I will say I don't think Tua is the MVP frontrunner on the Dolphins.
Yeah, you could make a case. Anybody could take that. Tyreek Hill, Raheem Mostert, Devon Achane, Mike McDaniel could be the MVP of the Dolphins, and he's the coach.
Coaches can't be MVPs there, Espinosa. Come on now.
Yeah, so yeah, I don't think it's all Tua. I don't think he deserves as much flack. Granted, I'm also a Tua non-believer, but I don't think it's all him either way. What do you think is going to happen in New Orleans next year? Because Derek Carr is still on a massive contract. They're aggressively average at best. Chris Olave seems to be the top dog. I imagine Michael Thomas will be on the out and out. Alvin Kamara didn't have as wonderful of a year as people thought he would. Jamal Williams was signed there in the offseason. He didn't really do anything, even in Alvin Kamara's absence. That's a really perplexing fantasy outlook for 2024.
I don't know. I said that way too much. I still think Derek Carr has it. He's shown flashes, but then again, he'll shit the bed in the next week. I do like Derek Carr, so sue me. But I think the Saints. It's probably more him than the Saints, but I think he had to get used to the Saints system, and Dennis Allen's been on the hot seat, so who knows if a new coach will help Carr or not.
Do you think that a new coach is more of a trend in the negative direction for fantasy output? Like, is it rare for a team to get a head coach and then they're instantly going from worst to first?
I don't know. I'm trying to think back.
Yeah, I don't know really too many examples off the top of my head. I have to look at the numbers.
It's more of a Bruner question than a me question.
We'll pen that down. We'll write that down for him.
We'll make Bruner do that.
Whatchamacallit? Do you got anything that you wanted to get off your chest here when we're talking about the 2023 season? Do we really think it was that different than any other year?
I mean, at least from the quarterback position, you have to say yes. Like, as we talked about earlier, the QB carousel. You go look at quarterbacks. He's only been 4 weeks so far in the AFC. Mahomes, Allen, and
Burrow?
What season?
Oh, sorry. I thought you were talking about predicting who the top 4 would be.
No. Tua was the 4th. That's it.
Tua didn't get injured this year?
I think he started every game.
Yeah, wow. Talk about a shocker, because that's breaking freaking news. Wow.
But I think for those of you who are watching, and this is what I forgot to bring up earlier, there are 6 Baltimore Ravens out this week. They're gonna have rest, take them out of your lineup, thanks to Lamar Jackson. Alongside that, you have Joe Flacco, who he's gonna get rest. You have Brock Purdy, he's gonna get rest. Christian McCaffrey, he's got an injury, he's gonna get rest. Take him out of your lineup if you're playing this week.
Yeah, really, really, really go look at your team's out, your injury report. Because especially in week 18, you got players resting on top of injuries. You need to do that to protect yourself.
Now, this kind of goes hand in hand with what we're talking about here, but this is more NFL, not fantasy. Do you think the NFL made the right decision putting Steelers-Ravens as the 4 o'clock Saturday game? I don't.
I mean, no. Do I think that they made the right decision? No. Do I know what they're going to talk about to keep the drama up? Yes. It'll be, can Mike Tomlin pull the upset and ruin, just add more to his legacy for never having a losing season? And does this loss hurt Baltimore in any way, shape, or form? Granted, they've already clinched the division. They've already clinched the number 1 seed. But I know that that's what they're going to talk about.
You can't, but it's not an upset at that point, though. I don't know why you'd say it's an upset. Yeah, they're seeing Lamar Jackson. Dalvin Cook's in just to get some reps. Odell Beckham's sitting. Like, half the defense is out. But, yeah, it's still up. Like, I don't understand how that's an upset. And there's another game on the docket for Sunday that's better, that wouldn't have mattered if they played at the same time or not. And I think it should have been Saints-Falcons.
It's funny because they have the power to flex games, and they've shown that the ability to do that. But I want to know what the criteria is where we're sitting here and we're like, hey, that's a no-brainer. Because if we're sitting here saying that, I'm pretty sure they've also thought that. But I wonder what the conflict is, that they can't just easily switch it out.
I think I'm kind of alluded to it, where like they want to keep all the NFC South games together because the Bucs haven't clinched yet. But if you move the Falcons Saints game to Saturday, no matter what, whoever wins that game has to wait to see what the Bucs do before they clinch. The Bucs have to play all their guys.
Yeah, it's more enjoyable for us as the viewers. There's more at stake than a meaningless game of AFC North football with Mike Tomlin's really pathetic Steelers or mediocre Steelers versus a backup heavy Baltimore.
Give me the U-Tree saying, the Steelers have bullshit their way here, and they're probably going to bullshit their way to another playoffs.
Yeah, I think they're a first one-and-doner, first-round exit.
That again, it relies on what the Bills do, what the Jags do. So,
yeah, Jacksonville really collapsed. Oh my gosh. That's another team. I mean, Christian Kirk is supposed to come back. He kind of has to. They're wanting him back because they desperately need to win. They've only won 1 game since he's been injured. Is Christian Kirk the missing piece?
I think he'll help. I don't know if he's a missing piece.
Has Christian Kirk cemented himself over Calvin Ridley for next year? Because Calvin Ridley got all the hype this offseason. Everybody thought it was going to be the Calvin Ridley show in Jacksonville.
I think, that was a trade deadline pickup last year, wasn't it? Not an off season for Ridley. Not that it matters, but I think Christian Kirk was the guy after his first offseason. He surprised the hell out of a lot of us.
Yeah.
I think when Ridley came over, a lot of people were like, oh, he's going to take over what Christian Kirk did, and that wasn't the case.
I genuinely think that Christian Kirk is going to move up a lot of draft boards. He clearly cemented himself as the top dog in Jacksonville.
As he should.
I say that with a nuance, right? Like, there was a different person each week, but Christian Kirk found himself consistently in that conversation. more so than, say, Zay Jones, who I know was out for an extended period of time. He said that over Calvin Ridley a lot of the time. His only competition really is going to be Evan Ingram.
Thank you, Evan Ingram.
Yeah, Evan Ingram. That's another thing here. What do we think the tight end position is going to look like for fantasy next year? Sam Laporta really came out of the gates running, having a tremendous year. Evan Ingram really surprised a lot of people this year. Travis Kelce was surprisingly inconsistent, much to people's chagrins collectively this year. Who do we think are going to be the top dogs in fantasy for tight ends?
So if there's one thing I've learned this year, it's I love George Kittle and I love Kyle Pitts. Do not draft them. Do not draft them in like the first 10 rounds. That's Kyle Pitts and George Kittle are too inconsistent for you to want to put them as your starting tight end.
If they fire Arthur Smith in Atlanta, do you think Kyle Pitts' fantasy value goes up?
Yes. Might not be by much, but it at least gives you more points.
But are you going to bite that, or are you going to wait to pick him up lower on your draft board?
It depends. We'll have to go in and rank them at some point, and I'll tell you where I'd put Pitts compared to everyone else. But I think tight end. What was he? A tight end 5 this year. Going into next year with Smith, he's probably a tight end 11 at best.
Yeah. I do think that if Arthur Smith does get fired, Kyle Pitts shoots up draft boards. I don't know if I buy the hype. Like Calvin Ridley had all the hype. I didn't really buy it. Who else got a lot of hype? J.K. Dobbins got a lot of hype coming back from injury. I just didn't trust his injury history. I think those are there's a lot of there's a tendency to really buy the hype for returning injury players. And with the prevalence of injuries and the prevalence of serious injuries that we've seen, I tend to stay away from that.
Yeah, I've been surprisingly buying low on Aaron Rodgers in a lot of leagues the past couple of years, but I think next year is going to be one where I just steer clear. And I think this goes back to what you talked about earlier with the Jets. You don't want to touch them with a 10-foot pole. And
yeah, unless they fix up that O-line, and if there's not some changes in the coaching position, I don't know why Robert Saleh has come out completely unscathed from the Jets situation and their turmoils. Everybody just immediately wants to say, well, it's because Aaron Rodgers isn't there. Man, they did nothing to help themselves on offense. And the fact that Robert Saleh, at least publicly, was still throwing Zach Wilson under the bus instead of questioning the offensive coordinator, Nathaniel Hackett, instead of questioning the offensive line coach, because no quarterback had protection. Unless there's some serious change there with the New York Jetropolitans, I wouldn't want to touch them with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah. All right. Do you have anything else to add here, Espinosa? We check off here.
No, just looking forward to next year for fantasy.
I'm with you. We talked about this earlier. I had 5 championship teams, and so far I've only won 1, and I'm projected to lose, or I'm projected to lose in the other 4. So, not a good ending for some of my leagues.
And yet, you still made it, though. You still rode the gauntlet. You still went through the crucible that was the 2023 year
of the Fantasy Bowl. Thank you, Henry. Acknowledge me.
We'll get him sometime later to acknowledge you on air.
You didn't.
Yeah, we're happy for you.
You weren't even here last week when you lost. All right, but I think that'll do it for us. Don't know if we'll be back. I think this is it for us this year. But
not done for Flurry Sports though.
No, not just done for this fantasy season. I'm probably done for this fantasy season. Maybe we'll be back on I'll definitely be on for a couple of shows for Flurry Sports.
As will I.
Yeah, learn some NASCAR.
Ugh. Left
Learn-
turn after left turn.
Learn NASCAR, buddy, instead of learn Chinese.
Learn college football and the UFL.
Oh yeah, we can do UFL stuff.
I'm excited about that.
Go DC.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say it's gonna punch. I'm gonna punch.
No, dude, they got the beer snake. They're hype as hell.
Yeah, they've had
Yeah.
that since 2020.
Yeah, dude, I love the culture that they got in DC.
I want to go to a game just for the beer snake.
Absolutely.
Like
I would
DC was
absolutely
my
join you on that.
DC was my pick before the beer snake, before the draft, because there was a little promo package I had for him that was in, and then the beer snake. It just
Man, it was them versus who was it? But it was like their division conference or division championship game that would then decide who was going to play the Eastern division for the XFL championship. That was the actual matchup. That was the actual championship game.
and then they lost the next week to the team that had 4 wins.
Oh, it was DC versus St. Louis, I think. That was the actual championship.
The actual when they didn't. Neither one of those teams won the championship.
Yeah, because then freaking
Arlington
came back with the vengeance.
Came in and won.
It's a game of inches.
Yep. But anyways, Espinosa, this good year, good year this year. There we go. Yeah, wait a minute. There. It's kind of backwards, but you better just take it. All right. Out of context. He's Zach Espinosa. I'm Zach McAdoo. And one last time, because we're gonna need it Sunday. Go Bills.
Go Bills, go Browns. Eat 'em up, Cats. And we'll see you in the next one.
Yeah, that's what he thought. Henry thought you missed because he went to the Texas State bowl game. But
I did. I did. I got pretty hammered, pretty sloshed. It was a good game. We earned our rep as a party school.
that's good. That'll do it for us, folks. Thank you. Good night.